Hello there. Going to be demonstrating punch and roll method using Hindenburg, and it is important to understand the reason behind why punch and roll is an effective method for recording narration, especially long form dialogue or podcast narration or audiobooks. It's steeped, or the history is it starts in analog recording. When you were recording to tape, tape is cumbersome, it's expensive, it's also difficult to edit. So the original analog recording systems, when they recorded tape, they would prefer to use a method where the person was performing. It could be spoken word, it could have been singing, whatever it was. If someone made a mistake or wanted to take a second take at something, instead of keeping recording, especially with music, you have to have it synchronized. You would roll back the recording a little bit. You would play it back so that the person can hear what they were just performing. And then you would punch in, hit the record button at the moment where they start recording over the previous take. So this gives you a couple of advantages. The final product will be pretty much ready to go. It's going to be already edited because everything is there. It takes less time overall than recording everything all in one shot without stopping and editing afterwards. And it also is better consistency for performance because you're going to be hearing your previous performance and trying to match that as you record. In order for this to work, we do need to set up a few things first. So I have a Hindenburg project ready to go here. I'm going to go into the settings, and I am going to actually just check a couple of things, make sure that everything is set up correctly. The first thing is the bit resolution and sample rate. These are standards in most linear media. 16-bit and 44 is what's used for CD audio, and 24-bit and 48 is normally used in motion picture, but we also use it in the podcast world a lot. My input device is set accordingly. I'm going to be recording mono because I'm only having one track, one microphone. It doesn't make sense to record stereo if you only have one source of audio. For the advanced, I like to turn off perform automatic leveling after import and record. The reason for that is you want your previous recording to match what's actually coming into your headphones from your microphone. So Hindenburg has this nice feature for people if you're just kind of using it all in the box, where it will automatically level things after you record it or try to normalize it to the podcast audio level. But that could actually be problematic if you're trying to record and you hear things louder than you expect. And finally, for the interface, we're going to leave everything off for the section, but for the moment. But I do want to indicate there's an area here called pre-roll time and record with pre-roll. We may use that depending on your actual setup. Outside of that, there is also something else to keep in mind if you are a Mac user like myself, and that is how the actual system preferences are set up. Because the automatic or default keyboard shortcuts for the computer conflict with Hindenburg. So we have keyboard shortcuts. I just searched that. We could click on that, and here's our keyboard shortcuts. There's two ways to use a keyboard to record in Hindenburg: control space or command space. Both of those are already used by system level events, which will then conflict and it won't work. There's no way to reassign this in Hindenburg. I've put in a request with Hindenburg to make these keyboard bindings remappable, but for now, input sources is for control space. We can see here, I've disabled them, and that's what I'm going to be using because I do like to use Spotlight command space, and I don't want that precluded by Hindenburg. So just make sure you have that disabled if you wish to use your keyboard to record. Now, we are going to be demonstrating both using the keyboard to record and the mouse on screen. It's really up to you what you prefer. The thing to keep in mind is that if you're using your mouse to record, then you have to keep your eye on where your actual mouse is on screen. Whereas if I have a keyboard, I can just memorize what my actual keys that I'm pressing, and it's a little bit easier in my mind. The other thing is noise. If you have a very clicky mouse or a very clicky keyboard, then the pre-roll is probably going to be best for you to actually perform this. So now I'm going to demonstrate how the punch and roll works. The whole idea is I'm going to be recording. I have my track set to record arm. I have the input set correctly. We can see the levels are coming through, which is great. I'm going to start recording, and the first time I'll demonstrate it using the mouse just so that it's kind of easy, noticeable I'm clicking when I'm clicking and stopping. And I'm going to be reading the lines that I see on the screen here. Now, I'm going to intentionally make a mistake, and when I make a mistake, I'm going to show how you are typically going to resolve that mistake. So I'm going to hit record. So, back in 1988, there was this identity theft that happened, which, when I read it, is infuriating to me. Okay, so I made a mistake there. So I'm going to stop recording. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back a few seconds, and I'm going to press play on my keyboard, and I'm going to play or speak with myself. And when I know the point where I made the mistake and I want to punch in, I'm going to hit the record button, and I'm going to read over that. Now, I could do a little bit of rehearsal to make sure I do this right. So, back in 1988, there was this identity theft that happened, which, when I read it, it infuriated me so badly. Well, now I want to infuriate you. So, check the story out. This all started in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, I made another mistake there, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit it again. It infuriated me so badly. Well, now I want to infuriate you. So, check the story out. This all started in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like I said, 1988. There was a hot dog stand there, which seemed, and I already made a mistake there. So, check the story out. This all started in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like I said, 1988, and there was a hot dog stand there which seemed to hire people who were really down and out. So the whole idea here, again, is you're just kind of going through and you're listening there. I did make a little bit of an error when I was recording at one point where I missed the spot, but that's okay because you can kind of clean it up afterwards. But if you listen to this, it should pretty much be ready to go and we don't have to re-edit it afterwards. I'm going to hit play. So, back in 1988, there was this identity theft that happened, which, when I read it, it infuriated me so badly. Well, now I want to infuriate you. So, check the story out. This all started in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like I said, 1988, and there was a hot dog stand there which seemed to hire people who were really down and out. So not bad. Now I'm going to turn on the pre-roll. And again, I'm using the keyboard here, or the mouse rather, to start and stop. You can hit Control space or Command space if you have that set up on your keyboard, and then just hit space button again to stop. I'll actually continue that. Like if you had a past criminal record, that's fine. You're hired. Homeless? Okay, here's a job, buddy. Get yourself together. And you see I just hit space again to stop. Totally fine. Now I could do the same thing here. I can start here. I can hit space. Past criminal record, that's fine. You're hired. Homeless? Okay, here's a job, buddy. Get yourself together. William Woods was a homeless guy working there, and they then hired Matthew Kierans. So I then made a mistake again there. I can go back. Get yourself together. William Woods was a homeless guy working there, and then they hired Matthew Kierans. Matthew had a long criminal record. Okay, I'm making mistakes left, right, and center here, but you get the idea. So you don't have to rehearse the recording. You could just read through it and play it and then punch in where you need to actually make those errors, or where you made those errors and when you want to make it. You want to find a spot in the actual performance where it logically makes sense to insert yourself, where you're kind of like at the end of a sentence or mid-thought, so that it doesn't jump out the edit. You don't want to do it mid-word, for example. Now I'm just going to demonstrate how you could do this using pre-roll as well too. So I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to interface. I'm going to record with pre-roll, and I'm going to increase this to about 5 seconds. I find 3 seconds is too low. And now when I want to record, I don't actually have to jump back in the timeline. I could just pick the spot where I want it to jump in, where I want the punch to happen, and then it record from there. Now you can still listen into it to make sure that you got a good spot. And then they hired Matthew Kierans. So I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to hit Control space to start recording, and it's going to automatically jump with that pre-roll 5 seconds and then start recording right at that spot. So I just got to make sure that in my text, I know where I am. They hired Matthew Kierans. William Woods was a homeless guy working there, and then they hired Matthew Kierans. Matthew had a long criminal record and was trying to separate himself from the past. He was new in town, just needed a little cash and probably get him the next town or something. And there you go. So let's continue doing that just so that it's obvious what's happening there. I am starting here, or I can even start in the middle here. I can listen to it first. And they hired Matthew Kieran's. Matthew had a long criminal record and was trying to separate himself from the past. Maybe I didn't like the way I performed that next part, so I'm just going to hit record. Matthew Kieran's. Matthew had a long criminal record and was trying to separate himself from the past. He was new in town, just needed a little cash to probably get him to the next town or something. So you can kind of work with your performance as well too. If you know you don't like something, I should stop recording, then you can actually go from there. And once again, we should have a pretty clean recording everything. The pre-roll might actually be better because you won't hear the mouse clicks or the keyboard. It really depends. I'm going to listen to this. Criminal record, that's fine. You're hired. Homeless? Okay. Here's a job, buddy. Get yourself together. William Woods was a homeless guy working there, and then they hired Matthew Kieran's. Matthew had a long criminal record and was trying to separate himself from the past. He was new in town, just needed a little cash to probably get him to the next town or something. So you can kind of work with your performance as well too. If you know. And again, you have something that's pretty much ready to go. It's still going to be worthwhile for the editor to go in there and make adjustments to timing and also clear any overlap that might exist. But this is a much better method overall and more industry standard in terms of how people record to have, again, long form narration, audiobooks, podcasts, things of that nature. To just give, again, a little bit more consistency between takes and make it easier on the editing afterwards.